OpenAI is officially discussing its for-profit conversion and updating its definition of AGI vis-a-vis its deal with Microsoft. All right, friends. Well, today we are talking about something that has been a long time coming. Of course, we are catching up from news over the last couple weeks where everyone's been out for the holiday. And a couple days after Christmas, in that netherland between Christmas and New Year's, OpenAI laid out their plans to convert into a for-profit company. This is something that has long been in the works. As we'll discuss later, there's a ton of legal implications around this and some big battles being fought. But by way of background, in case you haven't been following the ins and outs of this, currently OpenAI exists as a for-profit organization controlled by a nonprofit. Investors and employees are compensated through a capped profit scheme. The plan is to convert the existing for-profit organization into a Delaware Public Benefit Corporation, or PBC. This structure will allow the issuance of ordinary shares of stock, but requires the company to balance shareholder interests with stakeholder and public benefit interests. The public benefit in this case would be OpenAI's mission to, quote, ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. The nonprofit would continue to exist, with OpenAI intending to make it, quote, one of the best resourced nonprofits in history. The nonprofit would be granted shares in the PBC at a fair valuation determined independently. This has been one of the sticking points of the conversation, assuming it's allowed to move forward. Figuring out what fair value looks like for one of the most unique startups in history is very challenging. Their last venture round valued the company at $157 billion, but at the same time, the company is currently burning cash at a significant rate, for example, operating at a $5 billion loss last year. The proposal seems to be an all-stock deal, which would avoid the need to raise over $100 billion in funding to buy out all the nonprofit in cash. Overall, OpenAI positioned the move as a way to enable each arm of the company to operate to its full potential. They wrote, "Our current structure does not allow the board to directly consider the interests of those who would finance the mission and does not enable the nonprofit to easily do more than control the for-profit. The PBC will run and control OpenAI's operations and business, while the nonprofit will hire a leadership team and staff to pursue charitable initiatives in sectors such as healthcare, education, and science." To some extent, none of this is particularly new. What's more interesting is how they are starting to articulate and make the argument. They wrote, "We began in 2015 as a research lab with a vision that AGI might really happen, and we wanted to help it go as well as possible. In those early days, we thought that progress relied on key ideas produced by top researchers and that supercomputing clusters were less important. Eventually, it became clear that the most advanced AI would continuously use more and more compute, and that scaling large language models was a promising path to AGI, rooted in an understanding of humanity. We would need far more compute and therefore far more capital than we could obtain with donations in order to pursue our mission." Altman has articulated things like this in the past, basically that this was a requirement of trying to achieve their mission of AGI, not a betrayal of some nonprofit ideal. And in many ways now they're positioning this as the natural next step. Continuing, they wrote, "In 2019, we became more than a lab. We also became a startup. We estimated that we'd have to raise on the order of $10 billion to build AGI. This level of capital for compute and talent meant we needed to partner with investors in order to continue the nonprofit's mission. As we enter 2025, we will have to become more than a lab and a startup. We have to become an enduring company." Now, this conversion is shaping up to be one of the more controversial legal battles in Silicon Valley history. A legal challenge mounted by Elon Musk, one of the company's first backers, has been dismissed by OpenAI as baseless and a case of sour grapes, but Musk is not alone in his suit. Less easily dismissed is a supporting argument from Meta. In December, Meta wrote to California Attorney General Rob Bonta, urging him to block the conversion. They argued that it would have, quote, seismic implications for Silicon Valley. They wrote, "If OpenAI's new business model is valid, nonprofit investors would get the same for-profit upside as those who invest the conventional way in for-profit companies, while also benefiting from tax write-offs bestowed by the government. OpenAI's proposal to pay out the nonprofit using shares adds to this concern. Hypothetically, it would allow any startup to grow as a nonprofit and then easily convert as soon as they need significant venture funding. AI safety group in Code has also joined the fight against the conversion. That group was one of the co-sponsors of California's ill-fated AI regulation bill, SB 1047. In a proposed brief submitted to the court, Code wrote, "OpenAI and its CEO, Sam Altman, claim to be developing society-transforming technology, and those claims should be taken seriously. If the world truly is at the cusp of a new age of artificial general intelligence, then the public has a profound interest in having that technology controlled by a public charity legally bound to prioritize safety and the public benefit, rather than an organization focused on generating financial returns for a few privileged investors." Now, as an aside, that is a very different reason for wanting to block this than what Musk or Meta are bringing to the table. Code is making an argument about societal priorities, not the current state of the law. That's a fine argument to make, but I'm not sure how much bearing it's going to actually have on the case at hand. Supporting Encode's brief is fellow AI safety advocate Jeffrey Hinton, who wrote, OpenAI was founded as an explicitly safety-focused nonprofit and made a variety of safety-related promises in its charter. It received numerous tax and other benefits from its nonprofit status. Allowing it to tear all that up when it becomes inconvenient sends a very bad message to other actors in the system. Now, in terms of the response, there really actually hasn't been all that much. Most people already have their opinions on this and have kind of just assumed it's coming one way or another if Elon can't fight it through the courts. Investor MG Siegler writes, OpenAI makes the case to shift into a for-profit. And while you might not like it, the case is actually sound. On the other hand, some other folks like Miles Brundage, while glad that OpenAI is sharing more of its thoughts publicly, quote, there are some red flags that need to be addressed urgently and better explained publicly before the transition goes through. Brundage, for example, says, there is surprisingly little discussion of actual governance details, despite this arguably being the key issue. Brundage wants to know, besides board details, what other guardrails are being put in place to ensure that the nonprofit's existence doesn't seem to let the PBC off too easily with regard to acting in the public interest. So for those keeping track at home, the opposition to this is a combination of Elon being pissed and whatever interpretation you want to take on that front, Meta suggesting that the standards and implications for other parts of the startup industry are too severe, and safety advocates thinking that AGI shouldn't be the provenance of one company that doesn't have any particular obligation to the rest of the world. Continuing though, a major reason OpenAI feels the need to convert into a for-profit is some quirks in the company charter around achieving AGI. When the company was founded, strict limits were placed on the commercialization of AGI. The nonprofit board was granted the exclusive power to decide when AGI was achieved, with a lot of latitude in how they made that determination. Most importantly, any technology deemed to be AGI would be exempted from licensing agreements signed by OpenAI. While the safety granted by this arrangement seemed good in theory when the company was founded in 2015, it has led to a lot of headaches more recently. Most notably, OpenAI's deal with Microsoft included a clause that blocked the company from using OpenAI's technology if AGI was achieved, functionally allowing OpenAI's board to revoke the deal by declaring that they considered their latest model to be AGI. Part of why I think Microsoft spent so much of 2024 shoring up their own internal AI capabilities with the semi-acqui-hire of Inflection, for example, is that in the wake of the board debacle of late 2023, the idea that OpenAI's board might just randomly pull that card seemed much more likely. Still, it appears that progress has been made in the context of that specific relationship. According to the information, the two companies have now settled on a common definition of AGI that allows the deal to have certainty. Rather than delving into the philosophy of machine consciousness or the technical ability to deal with problems outside of the training set, their AGI definition is remarkably straightforward. Last year, the companies reportedly signed an agreement stating that OpenAI had achieved AGI when they had developed systems capable of generating $100 billion in profit. Practically, of course, this means that Microsoft will continue to have access to OpenAI's technology for years, if not decades. The community reaction is pretty much exactly what you'd expect on this. Marco Anastasov says, today I learned AGI isn't about intelligence or consciousness. It's about $100 billion in profit for OpenAI and Microsoft. Still, really interesting developments here to end last year, and I think set up for one of the big battles to take place in 2025. For now, though, that is going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Glad to be back with you here on the other side of the holidays, and until next time, peace